Welcome back to Our Tribe, the podcast. I am your host, Tuvia Kapstein, and this episode is going to be our first ever episode where we are broadcasting to the European continent, where we get to speak with Naomi Abigail Garfinkel, who is a content creator for Meaningful Minute, and who has been for the past 10 years or so, or maybe even longer, in the world of social media content creation. And she has an amazing story of trials and tribulations and revelations of God's hand in her life. And you are going to love her story, and you're going to love her content too, which you'll find out about is on Meaningful Minute nowadays. And she's done a lot of great stuff. She's a load of fun. And in this episode, we got real, we got emotional. She got emotional. Hopefully I didn't get too emotional, but it's hard, it rubs off. And that is what we have for you today. So stay tuned. And I must mention the Podcast Fellowship is what's behind Our Tribe, the podcast. You don't know about the Podcast Fellowship yet? Check it out, podcastfellowship.org. It's an international young adult Jewish outreach nonprofit. We're helping Jewish young adults connect to their Jewish heritage, to the Torah. They listen to classes on podcasts. They prepare the classes. They teach them to their mentor, they discuss them, they argue about them, and they earn a stipend each week they do this. It's amazing, it's great, and it's growing very rapidly, podcastfellowship.org. And now we bring you Our Tribe, the podcast with Naomi Garfinkel. You're gonna like this one. Okay, we have a special treat today. We're so thrilled to be here with you. Naomi, how are you?
I'm very good, Baruch Hashem, as we say.
Okay, wonderful. Me too. So Naomi, before we get started, we hear your whole story, and I'm sure it's a great story. And actually, in fact, I have many reasons to believe it's a great story. But can you tell us what are you doing nowadays in your professional life?
Yeah, so I just want to say, in my professional life, I also edit podcasts. So I know the first few seconds is so important for people to know if this is a worthwhile podcast. So before I tell everybody what I'm doing, I just want you to know I'm going to get raw, I'm going to get real, I'm going to give you hopefully so much value. So stick around, don't go yet, and B'ezrat Hashem, I'll be able to give you a lot of value. So now that you hopefully I've convinced you to stick around. So my name is Naomi. I work for Meaningful Minute, which is a company based in New York that produces and shares inspirational Jewish content. I've started there in January of this year, so it's very exciting. And for my work, I'm called a content creator, and I create clips. I go on Instagram, I show my face, I make videos, I edit some of the podcasts. So it's very exciting, and I really love it. So that's
Great.
A little bit of what I do.
Okay, and thank you for that promo. That's we'll keep. I'm definitely here. I'm your audience for sure. At least you have an audience of one. Okay, so Naomi, this is exciting, and I as I said in the intro, this is our first clip with somebody actually in Europe. Of course, we've interviewed people from Europe before. We had, I think, our second podcast was with Tanya Friedlander. I don't know if you know her, but she's from Vienna. But she's in America, so this is the first time we're actually communicating directly with someone in Europe. We had one in Israel, maybe more than one. But it's very exciting, and I'm so glad that the connection is working. Okay, so you're in Amsterdam, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I live in Amsterdam. I was born in Amsterdam, and I lived in America for a few years, which is why I have the accent. Okay. My mom is Dutch, and my father is British American. So. Okay,
very interesting. Okay, so let's hear the story. Like, you're in Amsterdam. Like, how'd you get? I mean, you came from your parents, but let's hear that. Let's hear the whole story, and I'm ready for it. We're ready for it.
All right. So, it's truly is a very journey for me to be where I am today, and the reason why it's such a journey is because I'm now 30 years old, and I started making videos, right around. I was 18 years old, or even before I was, I got a camera and I was making videos. I went to the University of Amsterdam and I studied their communication science, and I was living a very non-religious life. I grew up with B'nai Akiva, I'm not an Orthodox, but once I got to university, I just, as they say, OTD, or for those people that don't understand that, it means off the derech. So I like to say, it's just a different derech, okay? Everybody has their own path in life. So that's kind of just to give a bit of a framework of where I was, and now I'll tell you where I hopefully.
Can we get into that a little bit? And if it's not
too, go into it.
okay.
I love it.
Okay. So what what was the motivating that decision? Like, a lot of our artists doesn't know what it means to grow up modern Orthodox, doesn't mean why a person would leave that and go off that path and choose something else. Like, what was going on with you that you can share with us?
All right. So just for reference, Netherlands has a small Jewish community of about 5,000 Jewish people. Before the Second World War, there were about 100,000 Jewish people, and about 80% of them, 90% were murdered in the war, which is, my grandparents, my Dutch grandparents are both Holocaust survivors. They were hidden during the war at a young age. So Baruch Hashem, that, my family was able to survive, which is a beautiful and a story in itself, really, how that was possible. Today's also while we're recording, it's the 4th of May, which is the Dutch Remembrance Day, which is a day when we remember the Second World War in the Netherlands. So very, if their neshama can have an aliyah of all my my family that was murdered in the war, that'd be great. But Baruch Hashem, my grandparents both survived. And from my grandfather's side, his parents and his brother also survived, which was
hidden in somebody's house.
Actually plays a big part in my Jewish identity, because it also, just for reference, last week I got to post a video of a Holocaust survivor. His name is Mr. Yisrael Abelesh, and I got to interview him and posted a video on Meaningful Minute, and that video has 1.1 million views on our Instagram, which is very exciting. And it makes my work very meaningful to be able to share the stories of the generation that, went through so much and has so much to share. And that's really the core of what I also want to do, is to use all the tools of social media and use the tools that we have to our disposal, and to inspire the next Jewish generation, to help people connect to Hashem, and to help connect to their Jewish heritage through whatever that means may be. And that's really the beauty of it.
Wow. Okay. So are there many families from the Netherlands that survived the war by being hidden out in people's houses?
So I think that was the main way that they were able to survive, if they were hidden. And a little side note, my great grandfather, he was actually a mayor of a town during the war. It's kind of a crazy story.
Wow.
So what happened, his name is Abraham Rose. His actually was his yard site last week. What happened is that he was hidden during the war, and he needed he had fake papers, so he needed to do something every day. So every day he went out and he pretended to just go places, but he would just cycle around just to not be in the house, because he wasn't hidden. He was just had fake papers, and he was pretending to be a non-Jewish person. So he had to have a way to spend his day. And as he was kind of just known in this small town, the mayor of the town was either arrested or died, and they suggested to him, well, why don't you become the mayor? And so he became the mayor, and he actually spoke really good German, and he also was a really good drinker. He knew how to drink a lot of alcohol without getting drunk. So what he would do is
did he pass those skills on to your generation?
I wouldn't know. My German is not that great, and I
mean the drinking.
Disclose my alcohol ability.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
I'm joking.
Continue, please.
So what happened is that he would get the German officers to come and drink a lot of alcohol, and then once they were very drunk, he would show them the pieces of paper that had to be signed for the resistance, for extra food or permission to wherever, and they would just sign it blindly without looking, and that way he was able to do a lot of good things.
Wow.
But a little funny anecdote is that his wife, my great grandmother, she was also hidden, but as a mayor of the town, he needed a maid. So he sent out through the resistance saying that she should apply to be a maid at the mayor's office. So she comes, and they haven't seen each other in a year, but they have to pretend that they don't know each other. Okay, so imagine that scenario. And then the German officer says to him, wow, you guys seem to get along. You guys, maybe you should date her. And he suggests you should marry her. And he's like, okay, cool, I'll marry her. And so he actually remarries his own wife in the middle of the war on the suggestion of the Germans, which is, it's really a crazy story.
Wow. So that was a civil ceremony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, halachically, they were already married.
Right.
And then after the war, because he was a mayor, he had permission to move around the country, which wasn't necessarily allowed, because half the country was, was bombed and everything. And he had access to a car, which was also very rare at the time, because the Germans had taken a lot of the things. So after he and his wife, they went to all the schools in the country looking for their own two sons. My grandfather, they were looking for my grandfather and his brother, my uncle, my great uncle. And they would just go to all the schools and make a list of the Jewish children and try to find their parents. And once they finally found my grandfather, he was hidden in a different part of the country. And they speak a bit different dialect. And he was 4 years old when he was hidden. And when the time they found him, he was like 7 years old. And first of all, he didn't recognize his own parents, but he didn't actually know how to communicate because he spoke with such a different accent that you couldn't understand each other. So I just want to say a shout out to the family that hid him. And there was a girl there, 19 years old, and she really took my grandfather under her wing. She took care of him like a nanny in a way. And she then went to live with my great grandparents so that she could be like a translator until he would understand the different languages.
It was a completely different language. I can't imagine it within one country.
It's a little bit different.
I know that Dutch seems to be a very difficult language to learn and understand. And even when you said the word Netherlands, it was like it was a new way of hearing it for me. Like, you say that again, Netherlands?
The Netherlands.
Yes, that's something like this. That th. I like it. Very amazing. Okay, so you're saying that now what you're doing now is you're creating inspirational content, and it seems to be inspired by this deep Jewish identity that you have, and this resilience of your grandparents, your great grandparents. But at some point, can we get into, at some point you go to college and it's not meaningful enough to you to continue, and then something happens on the way. So can you tell us that story and help us understand?
Absolutely.
Let me adjust my lighting a little bit here. Okay. There we go.
Worries.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So I want to tell you all right. So as we were progressing from being in university, it's not like in America, maybe you have different students that are also Jewish. Like, I was like basically one of the only ones in my university, like not the only one in the university, but there were very few religious people. Most of the people that are religious, they move away at age 18, they go to seminary, yeshiva. And also my specific course, there was maybe like one other Jewish girl. Oh. So you're really surrounded by completely non-Jewish people. As a matter of fact, I actually made friends with a Muslim guy because he was helping with the homework, but he was helping a lot of people, whatever. And then I said he was Jewish. I said I was Jewish, and the Muslim guy said, "Oh, my mom told me that we should hate Jewish people," and I was like so shocked by that.
Was that the end of your relationship, really cool. Or you guys were still friends?
I never kept in touch. It was just like he was just like organizing, like, to help people with their homework, so it was really more for that benefit than real friend. But so I was studying and whatever, and while I was doing that, it just, if you're surrounded by completely non-religious people, it's very easy to want to, especially at such a vulnerable age, it's very easy to want to just like live that lifestyle, and you're exposed to so much, and you just want to, like, if you're not like in a bubble, I think then it's very easy to go along with the mainstream of whatever your environment is in. So I also want to reflect that to anybody who's listening. If you're making a decision, whether that be for your child or for yourself, should you be in such a specific situation, you either need to have a very strong identity and to be able to really know what is good for you and to do that, or to or not surround yourself in a situation where you could be maybe tempted to live a non-religious lifestyle if that's not something that you want to do. So okay. Naomi tip.
Basically, your advice is to surround yourself with the type of people, type of community that you'd like to be a part of. It's going to happen anyway. It's whatever community you're surrounding yourself with, you're going to naturally be a part of that community.
Yeah, if you make it very practical, right? So let's say you're living in America and you decided to go to college at a college that has very few Jewish people. That might be more difficult for you than to, keep your heritage, versus if you go to a university that has much more of a active Jewish community, it might be a lot easier. So if you're making that decision for yourself or for a child or for whatever, then it could be a lot, something to keep in mind, that is what can happen. And then I want to get into it because then I was about 22, 23, and I started seeing, a Jewish guy. And then by choice, we had a baby, but I wasn't married, which is, very unconventional in the religious community. So that really shows, like, I wasn't, was really not keeping any of the Jewish, I wasn't living that lifestyle, let's put it like that.
Okay.
So Baruch Hashem, I have a beautiful daughter. She's almost 4 years old. Her name is Natalie, which she's very cute, K'nai. So yeah, I'm also a mother.
And she's world famous.
With saying that I'm a mother. So that's very nice. But I think that also played a big part in my journey today, where I find it so important to focus on something with meaning. Obviously, that relation didn't work out. So then I became like a single mother in a way, co-parenting. He is still very involved, but that was a very difficult thing to go through. Being quite young, I think I was 26 when I gave birth. So, at the time, whatever, it was, it was very hard to go through that. And I still wasn't like living religiously at that time. And basically about a year and a half ago, I was really ready to find a new relationship, like to find my true spouse, my bashert, as we say in Judaism, to find my zivuk, throw in all the Jewish words as much as we can.
Different languages,
anybody who doesn't know the words, we
Hebrew.
can educate them.
Sure.
So zivuk and bashert and all those words are used to describe the Jewish version of a soulmate, your life's partner. So about 6 months ago, about a year and a half ago, I was ready to meet and get ready, to get married and all that stuff. And I reconnected with the community, and I went to shul very regularly, but still I wasn't really 100%, committed yet. Let's put it like that. So while I was on that journey, I realized it's very difficult to find a life's partner in a very small community, because there's very few people to choose from here. I would say, I don't know, 10, 20 people that are single my age, men. So you're really talking
the whole country,
a very,
right?
Yeah, or like Amsterdam, like whatever. The Jewish community is mostly based in Amsterdam, and I'm talking about people that are also religious, right? Not just people that are Jewish. They have to also then, be religious, and they have to match you as a person. So really, statistically, the chances were much smaller, and they weren't looking that great for me, which was, a hard realization, because it's something that I do want and I find important. So then,
I mean, it's something that it is to be observant, to keep the Torah. Is that what you mean? Or
to find
a spouse?
Somebody who's Torah observant and keeps kashrus and keeps kosher and has the same values as you. And I know that I kind of left that, but that is my true authentic self. So I wanted to go back to that, and it was important for me to find somebody who wanted that as well.
So it's at some point a year and a half ago, that's when you decided you need a spouse, and when did you decide that it should be this commitment, that you're recommitting to the religious upbringing or a new understanding? Is that did it come? It comes from, first I want to be married, and then now I have to re-examine my priorities, or what was motivating you?
I would say the motivation was really like that I wanted to find a person. I'm sorry, I should say man, because I'm not, I'm looking for a man, not just a person. I wanted to find a man who had the same values of, having good midos, of having good,
character traits,
just being a good person and living with a fear of God, really. I think that's very important.
So before a year and a half
observant.
ago. Okay, so that just to understand better for me, before a year and a half ago, you had already made that decision that you wanted to become more observant, or you had already become more observant? Yeah.
I was becoming, like, I was going to the synagogue. I wanted that sense of community, especially for my daughter. She was about 2.5 at the time, and I wanted that for my daughter. So I did go and connect with the community, but I wasn't very observant when it came to kashrus or Shabbos, and just kind of like, a little bit more lenient. And then really what made a big change in my life is really through Hashgacha Pratis. I really could see the hand of Hashem through it all. Is that about, I'm trying to put it, it's like such a story. So, okay, I was dating, people, and then it wasn't working out because I couldn't move countries, because I have shared custody with my daughter, and I would need permission from her dad, and her dad didn't want to give permission. So it was like a stumbling block every time I'd meet somebody. I'd be like, okay, you're cute, but like, okay, the person didn't want to live in Holland, which I understand. It is difficult to maybe move here if you're not, familiar with the language or the community, and et cetera, like that. So that really was like every time kind of a heartbreak again, like, okay, and kind of getting hopeless in a way, like, okay, I'm never going to be able to find anybody unless Hashem has to change my situation, because it's not in my hands. It's not in my hands. I know that it's Hashem who can change the situation and not me. And that kind of realization, like, you're not in control of your life. It's not you. It's someone else. Well, this specific person, like it was a specific person who had more of control, but really it's Hashem that decides where you are at in that moment and what Hashem thinks is good for you. So all the kind of heartbreak, and every time the heartbreak is kind of what led me to like look inwards and say, Hashem, I need you to help me. And then what specifically happened was about, I want to say like about 9 months ago, I went to, but it really happened like 10 years ago, because Hashem always has I really believe Hashem has messengers for you in your life. So what happened is about 10 years ago, I was living in Hanoi, Vietnam. Okay. To go even back, when I was studying, I had a friend from before, and she said, do you want to go to China for a summer camp? And I was like, yeah, sure, I want to go to China for summer camp. And that's not a Jewish summer camp. And as we landed in Beijing,
what kind of summer camp was it? What?
It was just for Chinese children to learn English, but it wasn't Jewish at all.
Okay.
All right. So after I landed and we were picked up, it was just me, and I didn't know anybody, and they were picking up 2 other people, and we're in the car, and they're like, so what, like anything you don't eat? And I was like, yeah, I don't eat any pork. And the other person next to me is like, yeah, I don't eat any pork. And the other person next to me is like, I don't eat any pork. And we're all looking at each other like, this is very strange. To like kind of figured out that one of them is Jewish, and one of them had a Jewish father and was very interested in Judaism. And that girl actually, if she's listening, she knows who she is. I don't want to say her name. I don't know. It's not for me.
How you doing? Okay.
How are you doing? She actually, went through the conversion process and lives in Israel, and that was very cool. Anyway, so I met her there, and then afterwards, I was in Australia for a wedding, and she was like, went to Hanoi, Vietnam to like teach English there, and she was just like, oh, do you want to come to Hanoi, Vietnam? And I was like, yes, I want to come to Hanoi, Vietnam. So I ended up renting an apartment and living there for a few months, and like making videos and just kind of like living my best life in Hanoi, Vietnam, which is kind of like a random place to live for a few months. But there, one Shabbos, there was I went to the Chabad. I went quite every week, I think, to the Chabad. One Shabbos, there was somebody there from England, and you're there in a place, you're talking to each other, and that's it. And I think afterwards we connected on Facebook, and I think maybe a few years later he sent me a message just saying, I don't know, I shared something very, whatever, and he said, oh, I hope you're doing okay. And that was really it. And I didn't speak to him ever again. It was really a very, very weak connection. And then about last year, January, I became active on LinkedIn, which is, by the way, where I know Tovia from.
Very nice, right?
Yeah. So I got a friendship connection from a guy, and I say he had like Chinese in his name. So I said to him, wait, you look very familiar. Do I know you from like China? And he's like, no, we met in Hanoi, Vietnam. Actually, I went back later on, and I actually found some pictures of my, old pictures of 10 years ago. He was actually one of the pictures.
Okay.
Anyway, at that time, I said,
that was really from like 5 phones ago, right?
Yeah, 10 years ago,
Okay.
literally, like some, whatever, old phone. And a very, very weak connection. But I said to him, like, I really want to come for Shabbos to London, but I don't know anybody to ask for Shabbos meal. Could you maybe help me out? And he's like, sure, I'll help you out. And really, he didn't know me, so it was very nice of him. And I went there for a Shabbos, and it was like a really nice experience. I was like, wow, this is so good. And then I got a job. I got a job for an advertising agency, quite a large one.
That's VaynerMedia?
And it's called VaynerMedia.
Yeah, that's famous.
It's well known. It's Gary V runs the company.
Right.
And that was very exciting. And I really feel like Hashem, I tell you why. So what happened is that we were going to have like a summer party on a Tuesday. And I said, wow, last time it was so nice to have a Shabbos. And I messaged this same guy and I said, well, if I come for Shabbos, can you help me organize meals again? And he said, yeah, sure. Just come, like whatever. So I booked to come. And
now, can I just give us context? From Amsterdam to London is how long does it take to travel?
Like 45 minutes flight. It's
okay.
$50 if you book it in advance for a one-way ticket.
Okay.
So
not too bad.
Far. It's really not far. It's so I messaged him saying, can I please come? Like, can you please help me organize for Shabbos meals again? He said, yeah, sure. Anyway, it's like Friday afternoon, and I messaged him like, so like, what's the Shabbos plans? And he says to me, I'm so sorry, it never happened to me in my life, but it never happened to me in my life. But actually, I didn't organize anything for you. So I said, no worries, I'll go to the Chabad, whatever. And then my father, very last minute, like mamish 5 minutes before Shabbos started, he said to me, oh, I just remembered I have a friend in London who is your age, because my dad had lived there and he, in the Chabad there. Chabad is like always like the connecting dot here. So thank you to the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
Thank you, Chabad.
Yeah,
we love you guys.
We love you. So my father had sat next to this guy in shul for like a year or two when he was living there. Mm-hmm. So he reached out to him saying, my daughter's in London for Shabbos, can she maybe eat at your house with your family? And he said, sure, come on over. So I come on over and, I was knocking on the door and I'm like, hey, I don't know you, but like, nice to meet you. And I don't know, I had like a really good time and I really connected, and I kind of started seeing him, which it was kind of interesting because
this friend of your father? Wait, the friend of your father's the friend
my friend of my father, but he's my age, but he's not like a friend. He was more like somebody he knew from shul, like more of like, whatever.
Much younger than your father.
Yeah, but they like sat next to each other in shul, so whatever you call a friend. But that guy was actually in Amsterdam before, and then my father said to like the rabbi there, like, oh, he's such a nice guy, we should find him a shidduch. And the rabbi who knows me says, what about Naomi, your daughter? And at the time, it just didn't really, like, nothing happened, nothing clicked. But when we actually met each other in real life, there was a real connection. So I ended up dating him, and it was a very positive experience. And, I have very much appreciation for him and his family because they were very welcoming and kind to me. And through that journey, his mother had said to me that she went to pray for him at Reb Shaila's. And I had never heard of Reb Shaila because Reb Shaila is not known in the Netherlands. Okay. It's a very like Hasidic, from Stamford Hill, and his mom was from Stamford Hill. So it was like not something I knew anything about.
And a lot of our listeners won't know anything about it either. So I hope you'll explain. So
it's a perfect opportunity to tell you about Reb Shaila, because Reb Shaila has made a huge impact on my life. Okay. So Reb Shaila is a Hasidic rabbi from about 100 years ago. In a place called Kerister in Hungary, which is about 2.5 hours drive from Budapest, which is the capital of Hungary. Mm-hmm. So he's known for a lot of people as the picture that you put up if you have mice in your house, which is one of the things. He helped people with a lot of hachnasas orchim. So he always gave people to eat and to give them a place to stay. And it was said that his food was like a miracle kind of food, and he was able to really perform miracles. There's also a whole book about him. If you're interested in reading it, I can highly recommend it. It's very special. And he wasn't very known up until like his popularity as a place to go has only recently been really happening. And now his yard side, the day of when he died, the yard side was, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, and there were about 50,000 people. So it has become like
50,000 people went to Kerister in Hungary to pray in his merit.
In his merit. So what happened was that after things ended, I was kind of in London again, and I call up again this acquaintance that I met in Hanoi, Vietnam, and I said to him, look, I'm in London again, but can you help me organize some Shabbos meals? And he said, no problem. And he did. But then he said to me, like, I really think that you should just go to the Chabad instead of like the meal that I organized for you. I just have this feeling you should go to the Chabad. So I said, if you say so, I'm just going to follow whatever you say. You would know better than me if I should go to this meal or not. So I go to the Chabad, and I just whatever. There was somebody like my age, and it said, wherever you're going next, can I just like come with? Like, I just don't have very much to do. And the person was like, yeah, sure, come on with. So we ended up at this person's house who just hosts for like Chulent. And while I'm in his house, I see a book of Reb Shaila, and I was very interested because I'd heard about Reb Shaila, but I never really read anything about it. And then I said, can I borrow the book? And he's like, sure, you can borrow the book. But actually, I was supposed to fly back next day. So I couldn't really borrow the book because you're not going to borrow a book and you don't have any time to read it.
Right.
Right. So the next day I was supposed to fly back, and I needed to get up like quite early, like 6 a.m. And like I was just laying there. I was like, I can't get up. Like physically, my body was just saying, don't get up, don't get up, don't get up. And I just decided not to take the flight. Before I think, oh my gosh, like it's not that expensive, the flight. So
You said $50, right? Right.
Yeah, whatever, something like that.
It was worth $50 to stay to sleep some more.
Yeah,
I understand that. I think everyone can understand that.
Yeah, I think it was very led by my intuition. And then later on that day, I was just like, I really need to read this book. I had like this strong sense I need to read this book. And I didn't know this person's, like, I didn't have his name or his phone number. I just remembered where the house was. So I just decided to like walk over and try to, and I walk over, and the windows are open, and just standing there by the window. And I'm just like screaming his name. Like, I don't want to say his name. I don't know if he gives me permission.
Okay.
But I'm just like, hello. And he's
let's
like,
say his name is Reb Shaila. It's
Yeah.
not. Okay.
It's not.
No.
But I said, can I borrow the book? He's like, yeah, sure, come on up. So
just to get clear, I lost the thread. This is the same man that you knew in Hanoi?
No,
this
okay,
was
from the Chabad. So the man that I knew from Hanoi had said to me, go to the Chabad, because in the Chabad, I met someone else who said, let's go to this person's house. So really, there's like a million messengers in my life of all people that I never really knew that all led me on this path. Why?
Okay.
So then I went to his house and I said, I can borrow the book. And he said, sure, but I'm actually going to Reb Shaila's tomorrow. And I was like, wait, hold on. It was like Sunday, and Tuesday was Yom Kippur. So he's going to go on Monday for Yom Kippur there. So I said to him, wait, can I come as well? And he's like, I don't see why not. And just like, I just got my heart so broken. I was like so devastated. And I just like, fine, like I want to go as well. So within half an hour, I had booked tickets, I booked everything, a place to stay and all the meals. And I ended up going to Kerister on Yom Kippur. With the program was kind of like an organized thing. And there were like 150 like Hasidic, and from guys, because it became like kind of a thing where it's kind of like a Kiro thing as well, a little bit. But it's a very special environment because on Yom Kippur, it's such a holy day, but then you're also surrounded with people who have made the trek to specifically daven there at the grave of Reb Shaila. So everybody's a very like heightened emotional state. And there's also like the whole Hasidic kind of energy of, so it was a very intense experience. And just for reference, there was like 10 other women, and 6 of them were the wives and daughters of the Chazan. So there really was nobody like me who was single and there by myself, like just a few couples, but really it was very few people. But I was just there, and I was like crying my eyes out, and I was reading the book of Reb Shaila, and in the book of Reb Shaila, it said anybody who came to him that wanted like help he said, if you keep Shabbos, if you keep kosher, then I'm going to help you. So why was I so pulled towards this? I just said, like, in the Zechut of Reb Shaila, I'm going to keep Shabbos, going to keep kosher, like 100%. And hopefully he'll help me I should be able to find my bashert, and everything should be able to be possible, because it was, it's a very difficult situation when you have a small child and you're living in a community with almost no opportunity to date. You really need a lot of help from Hashem. And I just decided that moment, that was last Yom Kippur, like, I'm just going to change my whole life.
Wow. This was so we're talking about a year and a half ago, or we're talking about half a year
No, this
ago?
was 6 months ago.
Okay, so at this point, you're at the grave of Rav Shiloh with a whole group of Hasidic people and just a few women.
Yeah.
And you're by yourself with God, with Hashem, and that's when you make a
100%.
commitment. You're saying, I'm going to commit fully. And before that, you weren't fully committed.
I was not committed.
Now
No,
you're
I was
fully
not
committed. Okay.
committed.
God, this is
Yeah, and
exciting.
that was really, yeah. And so everything that happened, like even that job of VaynerMedia, after that ended, literally the day that I met that guy that I started dating, like that's when the job kind of ended in a way. And it was almost like, Hashem was like, okay, I just needed you to get you that job so that you could end up in London, so that you can meet this person, because of that person you would go to Reb Shiloh, you would make the commitment to become religious. So I really have a lot of, gratitude for all the people on the way that helped me to be on this path of my journey.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time I wasn't also working. I was, I had some savings, and I was just kind of trying to figure out, I wouldn't say like a midlife crisis, but I was definitely trying to figure out like what's next in my life. And I started to make a lot of art. I was painting, and I was making like mezuzah cases, and everything that I was doing really felt like divinely guided. But I just kept saying, I want to do something meaningful. I want to do something meaningful with my life, because I want to serve Hashem. That was just like the thing that I kept saying, because I was like, I need Hashem to help me to get out of the situation, and I want to serve Hashem, and I need him to help me, and I want to serve Hashem, and I'm looking for something meaningful to do with my life. That was like really a big pillar of what I wanted to do. And I was like, I was working in social media before, like that was all that I knew how to do. And it's like, I kept saying to like my family, like, I don't know how I can work in social media and do something meaningful. Like social media in generally is quite, superficial. Like what, you're posting pictures of clothes or whatever it is that you're selling, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a very meaningful experience. So I didn't know. I was like, maybe I should become a teacher. Should I become a LinkedIn expert? I didn't know. I really didn't know. And then as I was kind of, recovering from like my personal experiences, which were difficult for me to go through, I got a message one day of Nachi Gordon, who is the founder and CEO of Meaningful Minute.
Hey, Nachi.
And hey, Nachi, shout out. I don't know if he'll probably listen to it if I tell him that I mentioned his name.
We'll mention this timestamp over here to make a note of it. Okay, Nachi. Okay, got it.
All right. So Nachi sends me a message, and I'm like, Nachi, I love your podcast. I still have like the voice recording because it was like on LinkedIn. I was like just like so excited to send him a voice note. And I sent him he's like, great. I'm so happy that you like the podcast, because we're looking for somebody to do our social media.
No.
So I was like, this is like so strange, because like there's like one, like there's like only like me in Holland who does social media, and there's like a million people in America, and like how did you end up with me? Like it didn't make any sense to me. Like how does Nachi Gordon asking me? Like how is this? I didn't know him. I didn't have any mutual friends. Like it was just very strange. And I thought maybe he'd see me on LinkedIn or whatever. And later I find out the woman who works also at Meaningful Minute, who I work with together, her name is Devorah Leah, shout out. I asked her later on, like, Devorah Leah, like, how did you know about me? She said, 1 year before. So right now I got the job in January. So a year before that. So this is like January 2022.
Right.
Okay. She had seen a TikTok of mine, which is strange because I really had like a few hundred views on TikTok. Okay. Like it really wasn't like I had very many views. But she said she'd seen me on TikTok for some reason. And she saw my face and said, wow, this girl looks so Jewish. Like it was just like, wow, this girl looks so Jewish, and was kind of intrigued about it. And she was working somewhere else at the time. She was working for like Jamie Geller, but she like just felt that was like a very interesting thing. There's just like very obviously looking Jewish girl, and she works in social media, but I wasn't religious at the time. This was before everything had happened that went to London and I met the guy and I went to Kerister and I became religious, right? This was all
But you
before
were,
that.
but just in terms of what I remember, you were already starting to post on LinkedIn and like being very Jewish
Yeah,
identity. Like
that was in
you're visiting
January.
shuls in Netherlands and wherever you went,
Yeah,
right? And
I was, yeah, I was busy with my religion, but it wasn't like a committed thing. It wasn't something that was so important to me. I was still like, taking on a job at just a big advertising agency. It wasn't something that was like so important in my life that I wanted to just do like Jewish stuff. It was only after all that experience. So a year before I got the job, she had seen me and she had remembered me. And then
what was that
only when
what was that TikTok post about? Sorry to interrupt.
I really don't know. It's just like I was just making some random TikToks because
Okay.
it was for my work kind of thing. I was just like, oh, if I'm working in social media, I should be making some TikToks. I was just kind of like
Okay.
winging it. So I really wasn't very active on it. And I really,
Yeah.
if you go back, you see I had a few hundred views. It wasn't like I
Right.
had so many views. It wasn't like I went viral or anything like that. Like it was really very, very
But you saw it.
undiscovered.
Got it.
But she saw it, which is all
Yeah.
that matters. But then a year later, after I was crying my eyes out and I was saying, I want to serve Hashem and I want to do something meaningful. And the company that reaches out to me from the other side of the world is called Meaningful Minute. And I just said, you can't make this up. You can't make this up. It has to be from Hashem. It's just, you can't make it up because I was going through the hardest time. I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I was like so heartbroken and I was like really going through a very difficult time. And I was just saying, Hashem, I want to serve you and I want to do something meaningful. And I just didn't know how. I live in Holland. There's no like Jewish companies really to work for. It's not like something that you can do, So it's just like, I cry almost when I think about it because it was so clearly only that I committed to it and that it was really from Hashem. And I think that's so beautiful that like, I could so divinely feel that that Hashem is with you and you're being helped is such a beautiful feeling. And I just hope that everybody who's experiencing difficulty doesn't just have that hardship, but also feels that Hashem is with them through that hardship. That would be my aim for them.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I was cheering for you when I saw, because we were in touch. I don't know if you remember, but we were in touch. I loved what you were doing. You're totally unique, and you were definitely showing your Jewish pride on LinkedIn. And I reached out to you to do a podcast at that point, and that was before this all happened. But I was very much cheering for you when I saw that you were starting to work from your Meaningful Minute, and I've seen a lot of what you've done.
Thank you.
That's a great story. Okay, so now where does that bring you today? It's been about 5 months. This is your 5th month with Meaningful Minute. And so what are you creating for them exactly?
So right now what I'm doing is I'm helping create the, content for Instagram, for TikTok, and, Meaningful Minute has a few different things underneath its umbrella organization, which is the Meaningful People podcast.
Right.
So if you're not listening to this podcast, you should be listening to the Meaningful People podcast. Plug. But that's really beautiful because really my whole day is just taking Jewish content and creating it in such a way that it's accessible and interesting. So everything that you edit can be edited in a way that it makes it more attractive. So just to get a little bit more into the value, what I want to give people, if you're making a video or if you're editing a video, you always want to start with the hook. The first 3 seconds are so important in the video. You want to make sure that you catch a viewer's attention. And yeah, I mean, that obviously sounds so like I mean, that sounds very much.
Yeah, it's important. It's important to say and keep in mind. Yeah, it's definitely important.
You add the captions, you add the graphics, and all those things I do. And some of the videos that that I was able to create from my work, they have 100,000 views on TikTok, and really it's not just the numbers, right? Because since I also started working there, I've been part of the team that is responsible for, like, we have over 1 million impressions a month on Instagram alone. So we're really creating millions of impressions on the internet, and as part of the team, I'm very proud that I get to do that, to hopefully bring Kiddush Hashem to the world and to help inspire other people. And really what's like so beautiful, I made like a little clip of that was like was about Israel, where he said, like, we need you, you can come home to
Oh, that was
Israel.
Shlomo Katz, Rabbi Shlomo Katz.
Correct. Yeah, it was
Okay.
really recently with Yom Ha'atzmaut.
Yeah.
And he then sent a message to Nachi, like, yeah, since you shared that clip, people have been reaching out to me saying they want to discuss their aliyah, because that
Wow.
like made them like want to go on aliyah, and it's like, whoa, like that's so
Whoa, you get to be a
crazy.
part of that. Yeah. That's a meaningful
Yeah,
thing for our listeners who may not be familiar. It's always a meaningful thing if somebody, if the word meaningful is the key word over here. If a Jewish person has the desire to actually live in the land of the Jewish people, in the land of Israel, it's
yeah,
a very significant thing in terms of their their observance. I mean, it's a mitzvah itself to live there. Now, it's not always feasible, and sometimes it's a question of not just feasible, but some people just don't want to because they're just comfortable where they are, and I can relate. But if a person
yeah,
wants to and is able to, then it's a very meaningful thing. So Naomi is saying that she had a
yeah.
part in editing that clip, and you had a part in inspiring some people. A lot of
I just
people.
feel like I for me the key is always is that to remember that I see that you have people in your life who are messengers, and you can also be a messenger for someone else. And so whatever that message is that somebody gives to you, or the message that you're supposed to give to someone else, is why I believe it's so important in life to be an open person, because when you're closed, it's so much more difficult for Hashem to send you messages. And when you're more open, you allow the people around you to be the messenger of Hashem to give you the message that you need to hear at that time.
Wow, so beautiful. Okay, now there's like no way we can top that. I would feel bad if we go into the mundane questions, but let me ask you like this: you're finding a lot of significance and meaning in what you're doing now for the Meaningful Minute, and inspiring people and getting those messages out in a way that they're interesting and full of value and use.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned to me that you hope to be able to go to a place where there's more prospects for you for marriage, like you hope to be able to go to Israel and live there yourself,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, because that's really like right now where my personal journey is on, is that I do feel like I would like to settle down with the right person, and build a Jewish home. Obviously I already have a daughter, so I'm very grateful for that. But it's it is a struggle. I'm not gonna, sugarcoat it. It is a struggle. And right now it doesn't seem to be in the, in the near future, but I pray a lot, and I have a lot of, emunah that at the right time with the right person that it will all be possible. And just while you're waiting, it can be difficult. Yeah, but like if you're waiting for something in your life and it's difficult, like I can relate to that, and I would say is that try to find the hashgacha pratis, which means like divine intervention in life, and try to find the good in every situation, and believe that Hashem put you in a specific place at a specific time for a reason, and you don't know what that reason is.
Mm-hmm.
And you just try to live your life, bring it to the fullest meaning that you possibly can, so that you could say afterwards, like, wow, what did I do that for? Like, if let's say you have a job and you don't find it fulfilling, it doesn't give you very much meaning, or you don't find joy in it, then afterwards you might ask yourself, like, what did I really do all my life? And maybe while you're struggling with that, and I think that in every job you potentially could find a meaning in that job. Like if you had said social media, do something meaningful, you'd probably be like, no, what's meaningful about making some Instagrams, right? Like how could it be meaningful? But then if you're making a video, and I just want to say, like, the Holocaust survivor that I was able to interview and share his survival story that got over 1 million views, that only came from my own pain. And I just want to elaborate on that, because I think it's so beautiful. Because when I was going through a difficult time, I had met someone, and that person had said, well, my grandfather survived Auschwitz, and he put on tefillin with a Jewish kind of a prayer. I don't know how to describe it for people that are not religious or non-Jewish.
Tefillin, okay, tefillin. You can look it up, Google it. right? You'll find
It's like a
plenty
black
of
leather
pictures.
strap and a box that you put on your
Phylacteries,
head, you put
if
your
that makes
arm.
like
And
anyone
if you,
knows what phylacteries are, right?
yeah,
Okay.
it's, it's definitely worth a little Google. So just to backtrack. So when I created a video for Meaningful Minute of a Holocaust survivor, it had 1 million views.
Right.
And the Holocaust survivor I only really got to meet because of my own pain. Beautifully, we were able to share his story in such a way that it resonated with so many people. But what's so nice about it is that kind of a very positive thing came from my own personal darkness, because I had only met him because I was going through such a difficult time, having a breakup, and I was very devastated about it. And the person said to me, you should meet my grandfather because he is a Holocaust survivor, and he had been, he was in Auschwitz when he was 14 years old, and he had put on the tefillin, a Jewish thing, and then he gives you a special power to give brachas. And so a lot of people, would go to him and ask for a bracha. So I went to him and he gave me a beautiful bracha, and I was like just so emotional about it. And I just decided, like, every time I went back, every time I kind of kept in touch and went back. And then specifically the day that I interviewed him, like that weekend, I was in London for work, and I interviewed him. And then that day, it's like I could cry when I think about it. That day specifically, something had happened that caused a lot of pain, and I was just, Mom, is so heartbroken. I was just like, the same day or the same reason why I was there, it was so clear that I had to be there to make this video, was also the same experience that led to a lot of pain. But afterwards, I could see so clearly that Hashem was still with me, and it was like, almost like it was really from Hashem that was like kind of a comfort. I know you went through pain, but I'm gonna do this so that it wasn't for nothing. Their pain was for a reason, and you're gonna have a reason. You're gonna look at it much more positively. And through so many experiences, I really feel like, really, like, I don't want to sound like super spiritual, but like through everything, I've had situations where I was like going through such a difficult time, and I decided, oh, I need to read this book. And I read the book, and I opened the book. It was a book about my great grandfather. And I read the first sentence, and it says, Abraham Rose, that's his name, my great grandfather,
Mm-hmm.
It was a book written about him,
Mm-hmm.
was born on the 1st of October. And I would think, wait, 1st of October, and it happened to be that day. It's like I didn't touch that book for years. And the day that I opened it, that I felt this strong urge to open it, it was that day. And I just felt like, what, my ancestors are with me. Hashem is sending me signs that's like everything, whatever you're going through, Hashem is still with you. And I had another story like that is, before I'd made a commitment to become very religious, I was just kind of like, I was dating, and I wasn't sure, should I cover my hair? That was one of the things I was kind of struggling with. And there's also a small little booklet like this big, if anybody's listening, it's like, like 50 pages, very, very small, that was written about my great grandfather from the other side of my family. So from my father's side.
Yeah.
And he was also a very special person. And after he passed away, the family had kind of, some of his diary entrance. They just kind of compiled. Yeah, they compiled it. And also he left a moral will, which I think is very beautiful. So it's not a financial will. It's like just a will, what he wants to pass on to his children and grandchildren. So I'm his great grandchild.
Mm-hmm.
And for months, I was saying to my father, like, where is this booklet? I need to read it. I need to read this booklet. Like, I couldn't find it anywhere for months. Anyway, it was like just before Rosh Hashanah. And I was just going through that period where it's like really like actively had to make the decision, like, how do I want to how do I want to live my like religious lifestyle if I get married? Like, do I want to cover my hair? Yes or no? And it was really kind of debating. I really didn't know like what was important for me. I was trying to do some research. And so I finally found the booklet, but I didn't have time to read it. And I take it with, and I'm on Rosh Hashanah. I open it up and I see in the moral will, it says very, very specifically, it says, for my female children and grandchildren, I ask only one thing, that they should cover their hair. And as I was struggling with this question in my life, I was like, it was almost as if it was written specifically for me. Specifically because all of his children and grandchildren, they were still religious and observant. And the one question that I was struggling with so much, and I couldn't find the answer, and I didn't know the answer, was specifically like there in the booklet. Like it was just like finally I got the answer that I needed. And also when I went to Reb Shaila, I was like, I'm going to commit to all these things, and just like it was
so many signs
impact.
are coming. Yeah, so many things are coming together to point you in the direction that you wish to go.
Yeah, and I
To
just want to
strengthen you.
say, yeah, and there's another story just like that where I was explaining the day that, like the weekend that I interviewed the Holocaust survivor, something that had happened that was very painful for me is that I had, this guy that I dated and whatever I was, that ended and I didn't see him anymore. I like was in London where he lived, and I was walking past the restaurant and suddenly I saw him, and I was just like, it was so painful for me to realize like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And I just kind of got like a panic attack, whatever. Anyway, through like divine providence, whatever, I was just there. I was sitting there, and somebody, like, I don't know, my Rebbitzin was calling me, and she was like, I'm going to pray for you. Everything's going to be okay. And somebody that I didn't even really know, but like I also met in Kerister as like a very like special person, like called me up out of the blue. And I was like, this is so strange. Like what's going on? And he's like, yeah, I have a question about social media. And then I said, oh, because I'm just having such a difficult time. And he said to me specifically, he said like to me like this, don't worry, you're going to laugh about this. You're going to laugh about it. Anyway, I go out the restaurant where I was just like sitting and trying to wrap my head around everything. And I go out, and the entire family of this guy is standing outside, like right there. And I was just like, if I had left a minute before, if I left a minute later, I wouldn't have seen them. But seeing them, and not the guy in himself, just his family, I just was like, see, it was like, I was laughing because what are the odds? What are statistically the odds that exactly the same moment you're going to bump into them on the street? Like statistically, it doesn't make any sense, but you just know it was like Hashem trying to comfort you, saying like, don't worry, I know you're going through a difficult time, but I'm going to help you by giving you the tools, like giving you the right people at the right time to make it easier for you. And so really that kind of bracha, I was like, you're going to laugh about it, really, really came true at that moment.
It was humorous.
Whereas like I was laughing on the street. I was laughing because I was like, so it doesn't make any sense. Like you can't, all these things in my life, like, are you going to get hired by this company in New York? It doesn't make any sense.
Wait, just to get clear. I mean, he passed by and you saw him through the window, and then you started freaking out, and then your Rebbitzin calls, and then she says you're going to laugh about it, and then you go outside and
somebody else
called, you're going to laugh about it, you walk out, he's gone, but his family's there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
that.
Got it. That's pretty funny.
It just, you're right. It's not so funny if you look at it just like it's
no,
one
it is
thing.
funny. It's funny.
Over and over again, every single time you see Hashem is clearly helping you when you are needing it most, and you are crying out and saying to Hashem, it's too much, help me. And you're just saying, Hashem, I want to serve you. Hashem, I'm looking for you. I need your help. I need you to help me. And then through that, like right after, you get like a little kiss from Hashem, a little bit, making it a little bit easier. And what could have been a very difficult situation then became so much easier because I was able to like give it a place, and I was laughing with them, and I was saying, it's so nice to see you, and they were comforting me, and it was like all good. And like I just knew like I wasn't, all these things in my life, like it was just like another thing like that was like I was able to raise some money for our kala. But the specific, what happened really was like, it was a very specific date. Like I'd never raised any money. Yeah. Like I really don't want to think like, oh, this girl's always raising money. Like I really never, ever raised money. Like I really had never done it. But somebody was just kind of mentioning it to me. It's like, oh, I want to help out. So I just kind of said it like this. And then I said, I'm going to daven for you in return if you give a donation. So I ended up like messaging all these people on LinkedIn and on my WhatsApp, and it's like trying to make like a whole campaign, be my 7th person, be my 8th person, be my 9th person to donate. And Baruch Hashem, we got to raise like, I don't know, £4,500. Like I got to raise £4,500 together with everybody who donated. But really what was so special about it is that the specific like I was posting on my WhatsApp status, and then I looked who saw it, and then I saw somebody saw it, and I messaged that person. It was like an acquaintance from like 15 years before, from my childhood. And I said to him, oh, I saw you saw my WhatsApp status. Do you want to maybe donate? And he's like, no, I don't give money to tzedakah, to charity. And I was like, wait, hold up. You don't give money to charity? He's like, yeah, no, I don't give money to charity because I pay taxes in Israel, and that's enough for me. So I said to him, wait, hold on. like now that he's like, I never even knew what WhatsApp status is. I literally just discovered it today and I saw your WhatsApp status. And I was like, see, it was meant to be. You're supposed to see it. And he's like, yeah, but I don't want to do it. And I said to him, look, but it's costing you more effort to just argue with me. Why don't you just like give me like $2? I said something like, give me $2, like just to get me off my back.
Just get it flowing, yeah.
Anyway, he's like, fine, I'll only do it just as I like basically like get you to stop like hassling me. Anyway, later on, I don't know how much he donated, but I know there was a donation for like $2, so potentially it was him. But I was saying when I was there at the chasana, then it was like really beautiful that it was beautiful to say, because really it was, you know, like people that donated, they donating in the zechut of like a 7-year-old boy who was sick, or a woman who was in jail. I had like a whole list of names. It was like printed out a few pages, and I couldn't believe it, because that specific day was going to be like a very important day in my own life that didn't happen. And I don't want to say anything more about it, but like that was going to be a very important day. And that was literally the day, those 3 days that I raised all the money was around that one day. There was something very important in my life is going to happen. That didn't happen. It was like a very emotional thing for me. And then I just realized, like, even through all the pain, Hashem is giving you opportunities to not focus on your pain and do something good for someone else, you know?
Wow.
I just think that's like
something so good. It's such a meaningful thing. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Thank you.
I want to say that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like if you're going through something, if you're dealing with something that's hard, you know, if you look for the opportunities to switch it around and to do something good for you, like if you take those opportunities to connect with Hashem and to do good for someone else, it will help you so much in the process.
Beautiful message. I agree 100%. And you are living that, and you're doing such beautiful things. And it's our bracha, our blessing to you, that your personal challenge that you have right now, being stuck in Holland, Hashem should quickly show you either that you're not stuck, or that he should just bring the right person right to your door. And I'm sure there's I'm sure there's listeners here. Social media is a huge part of young people's lives, and I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that are even older people's lives that are a lot of listeners that have questions about what it takes to be a content creator, and we don't have time to go into that now. But if they want to reach out to you, they should find you on LinkedIn or Instagram, or
feel free. I actually decided also to use like to be honest, like I haven't posted very much on LinkedIn. I used to be so active. I had like 1 million views in 1 year. Actually, I had 2 million, but 1 million, it was a post that went viral, but it doesn't really count, because I just want to say, I don't care if I had 1 million views on LinkedIn, because it didn't make any tangible difference in my life until I used the network for the benefit of someone else, when I started to use it for raising money or anything like that. So I just want to say, like, even statistically, like, oh, you have 1 million views on a video, like it doesn't make a difference unless it's like for someone else. Like you could have 1 million views on a video of you standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, so to speak, but what impact does it make? Nothing. So don't look at the metrics. And if you're consuming a lot of social media, I would say try to be mindful of what you're consuming, and try to consume something that is to your benefit, whatever that might be for you. And they can also follow me on WhatsApp status, but maybe you first find me on LinkedIn, because there's a link for the WhatsApp status. So Naomi Garfinkel is my name. And then follow Meaningful Minute, I would say. You might see me on there sometimes. So
right. Very good. Okay, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story with us. It was really touching in so many ways. And hatzlacha. You should be matzliach in everything you're doing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Have a great day.